Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Dynamic Cycle Institute, a journey towards circular economy webinar series powered by Taghleef Industries. I am Ambra Stocco, Marketing Communications for Label Films at Taghleef, and I will be your moderator for today's webinar. Before we begin, we would like to thank you for joining us 2 weeks ago in our joint webinar with CFlex, where we discussed about packaging and system redesign, as well as new quality recycling processes and technologies. As mentioned, the DC Institute is a webinar series with TI partners and industry experts with the aim to share advanced know-how to various stakeholders within and beyond the packaging and plastics industry. For today's webinar, we are also joined in by Daniele Borin, Taghleef's Product Manager Flexibles, to introduce our speaker for this afternoon and take part in the questions and answer portion after the presentation. Hi, Daniele, how are you?
I'm good, thank you, Ambra, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm very excited for our presentation today because we are joined in by one of our partners and leaders whom we have been collaborating with for quite some time now, which is Interseroh. Interseroh provides and develops tailor-made integrated environmental services for customers in every industry. They invest in innovation and long-term partnership with customers, with the goal to meet every customer's requirement with constantly new models of sustainability. They systematically close product, material, and logistic cycles with recycling solutions and strategies for waste prevention that set standards across the industry. Furthermore, they work with customers throughout Europe to design intelligent, full-service solutions and products that focus on improving company sustainability performances that will benefit the environment, the economy, and the society at large.
Thank you, Daniele. This afternoon's presentation will be quite interesting for our audience, especially when we have experts like Interseroh to join us and share an insightful presentation that is very much pressing and relevant to our industry today. Before we introduce our speaker, we would like to remind you to mark your calendars so you do not miss out our last 2 upcoming webinars for our first Dynamic Cycle webinar series. On the 26th of November, we are to be joined by Recyclability, and finally, on the 10th of December, we will be having HTP Cyclos with us. You can follow all the latest updates for our upcoming webinars through our LinkedIn page, that is Taghleef Industries, and Twitter page, that is at @TI_films. In case you missed out our previous webinars, you may preview them on our landing page, that is dynamiccycle.ti-films.com. We will be answering your questions at the end of the presentation, so please feel free to type them in and we will try to cover them during the Q&A session. You can click on the below Q&A button, which you can find on your dashboard, to send in all your questions. And now, to officially begin, I turn this over to Daniele to introduce our speaker for this afternoon.
Thank you, Ambra. As mentioned, for today's conference, we are joined by Interseroh's head of Made for Recycling. After studies process engineering for paper and packaging in Munich as Bachelor Engineering and Packaging Technology at the Voith University of Applied Science in Berlin as Master Engineering, he worked as a business development engineer in the United States, and then in application engineering at Bischoff & Klein in Lengerich. At the beginning of 2018, he then started working for Interseroh in Cologne in order to meet the new challenges of the new German packaging law and to promote packaging design made for recycling, which is the department he is leading today. Already before and during his studies, he gained experience in packaging development for private labels and brand owners, in corrugated board production and in film production, and thus, he has a comprehensive view of the supply chain for packaging. Let us welcome this afternoon Mr. Julian Thielen.
Yeah, Daniele, thank you very much. Thanks everybody from TI to have the chance to speak here today. And I would like to take the chance for the next upcoming minutes to give you a little bit insights into the topics of lightweight packaging sorting and recycling, and especially what that means for flexible packaging and the role flexible packaging for food will take part of this circular economy. For the very start, I would like to just say that we are, as Interseroh, a 100% daughter company from Alba, and there we're one of the biggest recyclers in Europe. Here on this map, you see that we do have right now 5 sorting plants in Germany, where we do sort every third yellow bag in Germany. The yellow bag is, especially for Germany, the bin or the bags where you collect lightweight packaging. And as you see, we open up the 5th plant by beginning of 2019. Big accident happened there around Easter time. One of the biggest problems we do have on sorting lines today, lithium-ionium batteries from power banks and e-bikes, for example, that cause burns on sorting plants day by day right now. And in this case, one night, the whole plant burned down. And we started again. And with 2020, we do have bag 5, quite huge and top of technology sorting plants here in Germany, and from technology-wise, leading in Europe as well. And for that moment, you see that we are not just, and when I'm talking about Alba, where we do have all the truck and the infrastructure for getting the waste from the households to our own sorting plants, and for sorted PE and PP bales, we do recycle these bales by our own in our plant in Eisenhüttenstadt, where we are recycling PP, PE to injection molding granulates or recyclates and blown molding recyclates. And you see typical products here in the left corner. We can make packaging actually out of this waste that came out of the yellow bin, and here are really closing the circle on our very own. That's a small part for the introduction, why we're here today. And now I would like to go with you through the whole topic of the criteria to rate a packaging by its recyclability. Therefore, you need to know that we do have in Germany the legal changes starting from 2019, saying that with the German Packaging Act, we do have more a view on the packaging design in terms of the recyclability, the use of renewable resources, and the use of post-consumer recyclates. And this is definitely coming also from a lot of technology improvements happened through the last years. We all know how the great technologies behind especially flexible packaging that's gaining and gaining, and was always very sustainable in terms of down gauging and the save of resources when you're, for example, comparing a bottle to a flexible packaging film, where you can save 80-90% of plastic, but therefore, because it was always a mixture of different polymers, harder to recycle. So technology here, for, packaging-wise, improved, but the sorting recycling industry couldn't align with that. And we are here today with the Packaging Act that's giving a focus more on the sustainable packaging design. So there's a strict guideline coming from this Packaging Act on how to rate a packaging by its recyclability. This is called the minimum standard for recyclability, where we are active member of this expert circle. And before this law started, you could also rate the packaging recyclability at Interseroh. But back in the days, so then I'm talking about everything earlier, 2018, a package was sent to us here in Cologne. We asked one of our plant staff members if he had the time to walk through the process, putting it through the wind shifter, through the NIR scanner, and at the end you do have the information, okay, this bottle goes into the PET fraction, and this PET fraction is well remarkable, and therefore it's getting recycled. So just the information on where it's actually ending up, and if there's a recycling stream. So no information, maybe what's happening with the label, what's happening with the cap, what's happening with the barriers in there, just information about the end of the, in which stream it's actually ending up. And with the packaging law, like I said, we are needed to make a rating between, or to say, okay, alternative A is more recyclable than alternative B, distinguished by points, percentages, howsoever. And we do have now the ability to do so, because together with the BIFA Environmental Institute and the Fraunhofer IVV, we have an independent developed recycling assessment method that we are exclusively applying and working with. And therefore, we are today doing this method in our own laboratory. The criteria for the recyclability, you see here, we call this the three stages of the afterlife of a packaging. So you see here, BIFA is having their hands on the full method, and the 3 stages of afterlife are on the one hand, or on the first stage, the collection. So this is everything where the end user is having, it's their influence on the recycling. What does it mean? If you, for example, have paper mixed packaging, paper laminates, it's clearly, it's not intuitively easy for the end consumer to strictly say if this belongs to the paper bin or does it belong to the packaging bin, because he cannot start calculating is it 50, 20 or 50% plastic mixture, and therefore it would be helpful if you have little signs for the right disposal on the packaging. So this is the very first criteria we are looking at here. If you take a look in the middle section, which is the criteria or the level of sorting. So everything that is in our hands as Interseroh and then our competitors in terms of sorting technology. And there you have the very first criteria. You need to look for the minimum size of a packaging to sort it. And then I'm not talking about the economical size. So if a sorting plant at the very beginning is sorting out everything smaller, 60, 50 millimeters, this is just because otherwise for smaller parts, the packaging, the sorting line would need to run slower and then would be too expensive for little components to sort them into right fractions. This is here more the technical size to sort a packaging. And there we are talking about 20 by 20 millimeters. Where does that come from? If you imagine near-infrared scanners, where you get the information from a near-infrared signal on position A, and 2 meters afterwards on position B, you do have air nozzles that blow out the specific polymer or plastic that's detected on position A. And these air nozzles do have specific distance to each other. That's around 20 to 25 millimeters. And everything smaller has a certain chance to just go through without any sortability. And this is more the technical minimum size. And this is in our methodology here written down as 20 by 20 millimeters. If you're looking at next criteria, this is about the detection of the actual target material. Of course, easy one, if you're having a tin plate packaging, this needs to be magnetizability to sort it out of the stream and bring it into mechanical recycling. For aluminium components, you are working with eddy current separators that are working with an electric field and also magnetizability at that point. And it's very interesting in here that even the smallest aluminium components in a packaging do lead to a sorting of the whole pack to the aluminium fraction. If you're talking about aluminium layers in a packaging, 100% sure this is going to aluminium as well. If you're talking about yogurt cups with the aluminium lid, 100% sure this is going into the aluminium. So we made tests, and depending on size and the form of the material, 1-2% of aluminium are so fine to bring the whole pack into the aluminium fraction. So this is why we always say, please separate the aluminium lid from the cup to really save the specific raw materials at the end, and nothing is getting into incineration. And for plastic packaging, this is here the very last criteria in this line, is the detection of the material in the NIR scanner. So then, like I said before, the near-infrared scanner is taking a look on the surface of the packaging, trying to get the target material and to sort it correctly. So here we're talking about multi-layer materials. We're talking about everything labeled, especially if it's a sleeve, a full body sleeve. This is everything that having an influence on the sortability in the near-infrared scanner. And therefore, we are testing every specific packaging on our own near-infrared scanner that we do have in our laboratory, and can tell in how many runs out of 10 trials this is sorted correctly, or if it's going into a whole nother fraction. On the last level, when we're talking about the actual recycling, we do have the 3 last criteria, and at the very first, we're just taking a look into the material fraction itself, or the main material that is used. And if there is a market chance to really mechanically recycle this, because when we're talking about recycling, we cannot say, okay, in theory, I can melt the packaging and I can form another product out of this. This is just a theory part, but it needs to have a practical company that's actually doing the business and actually buying the material from the market to recycle this. So this is applicable on the most common materials, of course, which is PET bottles, polypropylene, polyethylene, and in Germany we're also talking about polystyrene. But if we're going into more exotic fraction, all bioplastics like PLA, for example, there's just the amount of material so low and inside the packaging stream that there's no actual recycler to recycle that material. And when we did the rating for the main material, we need to take a look at everything that's not this target material or the main material. And then the question is, in the specific recycling process, do other components get separated and not recycled, or do they stay inside the stream and maybe impurify this? So if we're talking about labels, for example, a paper label on a PET bottle, this is getting washed off. And of course, there's nobody going after into the processed water to get out the fibers. This paper label is lost in the process and needs to be rated as a non-recyclable component. And if we stay here, when we are talking about impurities, this could be all the barriers inside a flexible packaging or a PET bottle. Every kind of packaging at one point needs some barriers or even the printing inks. This is something that is rated in the very last criteria. And this is, we as Interseroh, we do have 3 different, I would say, stages of impurities with a low risk, a high risk, and everything that's making the recyclate unusable or unmarkable anymore. But I will come to that in 2 slides more. Just to round this up, I just show you the points that we are getting here, because when we are talking about recyclability, we think it's always pretty hard to tell this in percentages. Because this is from my experience, every time somebody is talking about 68, 95, or 94%, there's always another sentence behind that trying to explain this exact percentage, and I never heard the correct explanation at that point. And on the other side, everybody wants to have 100% there. And this is always quite tough. This is why we decided to work with 0 to 20 points. And above that, you see this in the very bottom. You have this like a school grade system where we're talking about non-recyclability, limited, good, and very good recyclability. And when we started with this methodology in May 2018, we also started with the Made for Recycling label that you get when you do have more than 18 points in that system. And this is for us the point where we really know that you need to think of the design for recycling right at the point where you design the packaging with all the other functions of protection and information. If you think with the recycling within this process, you can reach this point as well. And this is nothing that's happening by accident. So here we do have the recycling label that's getting used quite well in the last 2 years, where we are pretty happy about this development. See also here our packaging hero, we are calling this. And yeah, this is something for end consumers to really see the good recyclability of a product, because the packaging film, if it's multi-layer or mono-layer with the best barrier you've chosen, for end consumer, it's still a film. It will always be a film. It will always be plastic, and it's for him, he needs some guidance to really see what's better recyclable and what is not. For the end, and this is the link between recyclability and the product, the packaging design for food packaging, because in food packaging you do really have the issues to find the right barrier for your product, because every product is different. Every product and every food just needs different barriers to either have vapor barrier or oxygen barriers. And here you see the classical diagram for water vapor and oxygen barrier, where you have the ones with the best barrier properties concerning to vapor in the bottom part of the diagram, and the best oxygen barrier on the left part of the diagram. So as more as you go down in the bottom left corner, you do have more barrier properties for this material, or this barrier in that case. And if you're going to the top right, the barrier properties are weakened. And I added this up with 4 different colors for the influence of this barrier on the recycling process. And this is on the one hand based on German minimum standard for recyclability, where it's really said what barriers should not be in the product, because it's impurifying the process and therefore weakening the properties of a recyclate. You see that you have the OPA barrier, the PVDC barrier, and the PVC barrier. That's for in terms of recyclability, kind of forbidden by the law. And I also added in here cellulose, which is impurity, because the material itself does not have a recycling stream at that point. What do we have in between? What about the metallization and aluminium? Like I said before, aluminium is not in here because it's really going into the recycling process of plastics. This is more here because if you do have a full aluminium layer inside your flexible packaging, this is leading to an sorting into the aluminium fraction. And if this would be recycled with plastics, this is the same with metallizations. It would be homogenized together with the plastics, and would get kind of gray structure into the material. So what do we like as recyclers? Is basically everything that's pretty thin from the material side, and transparent. And there we're going with SIOX and ALOX barriers. That's for us, at the end, is something like a very, very expensive filler. Not for us, but just by the amount and what the film is costing. But we don't even, or not yet really see any technical weakened properties from these barriers. And on the very last point, I would say, where the EVOH barrier, this is quite often pretty well discussed. Really or the influence could be different from LDPE and HDPE or polypropylene. And you always read something about 5% rules that we are not really aligned with, because there's, from our point of view, not strictly sayable where there's a threshold to use EVOH or not, and tend to say as less as possible, I would say. And this should be an overview to see really what's the best barrier for a product in terms of recyclability. But you always need to, of course, to choose the right barrier for the exact product, and really to ask what does the product need, instead of taking the maximum barrier, putting aluminium in there just to be safe. This is something I would see to be done from the brand owners. So just to sum this up, I would like that. I'm a flexible packaging, or still feel like flexible packaging guy on my own from the work I did before, and I do totally understand or see the way flexible packaging is doing for sustainability, just by the sustainable triangle of reducing plastic material, or to save, on the other side, fossil resources. What's still struggling is that in many countries through Europe, the flexibles are not even sorted yet. We see that this is improving and changing to a good, but this is having special challenges for the process, and hopefully this is improving as well, because I see also very good recycling chances for that material. And at the very end, I want to say again, if brand owners are listening, really to ask or to get the information what kind of barrier the product really needs. So to ask yourself, is the structure that's probably 20 years old and somewhere in the company, somewhere developed, really the right one? Do I need that maximum barrier, or can I go lower here? And I don't totally understand that the retailers are having quite long time for the best before date. But we also see in guidelines that retailers are decreasing the shelf life time that's necessary for a product. So I see a good sign from the retailers, and I would be happy if you just get more information about really what your packaging needs, to find the specific and the exactly needed barrier for your product, and to choose the right packaging. And this was my presentation for today, going through our assessment method, and to show you a little bit of the criteria that are important for the recycling process. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Julian, for this very informative presentation, and also for the detailed insight you provided for your recycling program.
Thank you very much again. And I'm sure that our live audience have picked up a lot of useful information today. As mentioned earlier, after the presentation, we would be answering some of the questions that you have sent us. So we have one, and it's this one. What is the main difference between the Made for Recycling assessment method compared to other standards?
On one side, you need to see where we are pretty much aligned. And this is a good thing that we do have a minimum standard here in Germany that say, okay, these are the basics that need to be aligned with. And not every body and every sort or every system can make their own decisions about materials and the recycling process. Because as yeah, we need to have somehow same results. But I think what's important when I'm talking about our method is that we are really looking into the specific packaging, and we are going through the laboratory with every packaging and every packaging component. We are not trusting on specifications. Every now and then people send us the specifications, or they get other results than what the specification said. Yeah, somehow surprising what's still in there, or people think they are ordering or do have in the pack, and we see that it's necessary to take the own look into every packaging and to do the near-infrared sorting, not just in theory, but really go on industrial-like near-infrared sorters to see how well the packaging is sortable. I would say that we are going through our own laboratory and don't trust on specifications.
Thank you, Julian. For the next question, in many countries, there is no existing stream for smaller flexible packaging. Can you explain the challenges in sorting and recycling of flexible packaging?
Yeah, before I introduced also the near-infrared technology, the near-infrared sorting, and there where you have the point A of detecting the material and point B where you have air nozzles that are shooting out the specific plastic you are looking for. And this is happening by high speed on a conveyor belt. And for flexible packaging, it's quite challenging because you do have the air cushion or air barrier just from the wind stream that's bringing a difference of point A in terms of position to point B. So it's harder to sort on that side. We are sorting our flexible in a constant wind tunnel where the speed of the wind is the same as the conveyor belt. So we can sort the flexibles. And this is quite challenging, of course, when you're starting up the process. And on the other side, you need to see what's the good thing about flexible packaging. It's less material. It's not just 10, 20% compared to rigid. So the amount of flexibles is also smaller than the flexible, or just the mass of flexible packaging to rigid packaging is less. So if you're sorting, you're starting to focus on rigids because easier to sort and more mass. And this is something we see developing also in Europe, that it's more and more also flexible are sorted.
Thank you very much. I think it's very, very interesting. I think we can answer one last question. That's this one. The demand for sustainable packaging is rising and consumers tend to prefer paper-based packaging. So what's your opinion about this trend?
Yes, I totally understand. Right now, every brand owner that's switching to paper packaging. It's just selling off quite easily. Like I said, people are grabbing this because it's just it's feeling very sustainable. For me, I think this is quite challenging. This material is very unattractive for paper mills to recycle, because with this mixed packaging or mixed paper plastic, you have lots of organics from the food waste in the process. You do have mixed material, so you can have 10% fibers or 90% fibers in your bale, and you can have a wet strengthened paper, for example. So it's not a continuous process for paper mill, and this is why this is very unattractive for paper mills to recycle. And roughly 50% of that material doesn't even find any recycler. It's just getting recycled thermally at that point. It will be interesting to see how this is further evolving, because if it's more and more paper packaging in food, we will get more food into not just the lightweight packaging stream, but also into the paper, the clear household paper stream, and see if this is having even more influence. Because today, all the paper guys are talking about the pizza cartons as a big problem. And if you're packing more and more food with paper, this is getting heavier and heavier. So this will be challenging for paper industry and that side, and for us as well.
Thank you, Julian. Yeah, actually, we have received quite a number of questions, and for sure, we would be happy to answer them all. But due to time constraints, we will be personally responding to your question via email. Once again, thank you, Julian, for this afternoon discussion, and we are really honored to have you here with us on Dynamic Cycle Institute.
Thank you very much.
Thank you again. Indeed, it has been a very fruitful discussion today. And so thank you again very much, Julian, for sharing your presentation with us. And Daniele, of course, for joining us. Now on to the next webinar that is scheduled on the 26th of November at 3 p.m. Central European Time. We will host Mr. Fabrizio Di Gregorio, who is the technical manager of the Plastics Recyclers Europe, and his presentation will be entitled Design for Recycling with Recyclas. If you have any further questions, please feel free to reach out to us through our contact details. You may write to us at sustainability@ti-films.com, or for further information, you can visit Dynamic Cycle website, that is dynamiccycle.ti-films.com. You may also follow us on our LinkedIn and Twitter pages for the latest webinar updates, schedules, and speakers, or you may easily search and filter through by using the hashtag Dynamic Cycle Institute. Thank you all once again for joining us today, and we'll see you again next time.